In the fall of 2026, the global gaming market faces a massive logistical challenge as major studios across the industry begin clearing their schedules in anticipation of a single software launch. Rockstar Games recently locked in the launch date for their next major title, November 19th. It has been well over a decade since the launch of Grand Theft Auto V. That massive gap in the timeline has acted as an accelerant, compounding consumer anticipation with every passing year. The sheer cultural weight of this launch forces developers and publishers to adjust their financial strategies, treating the release as a fixed point that the rest of the market must navigate around. To understand why competitors are so concerned, look at the physical processing requirements of the simulation. Rockstar builds expansive open worlds, specifically designed to test the extreme limits of modern processing power. Pushing these physics and rendering systems requires top-tier platform capabilities, relying heavily on the advanced hardware architecture of the PlayStation 5. Developers also have to optimize these massive specifications for Microsoft's secondary flagship ecosystem, ensuring the simulation scales properly for the Xbox Series S. When millions of players focus their attention on a single technological benchmark, it creates a concentrated mass of engagement that competing developers find impossible to ignore. Because of this technical and financial scale, smaller studios find themselves in an impossible position. They cannot compete for that limited hardware bandwidth and player attention simultaneously. This brings us to late 2026, where a literal GTA-shaped black hole is forming right in the middle of the release calendar. This gravity became visibly apparent at presentation events like Summer Game Fest, where studio executives suddenly realized the danger of a late-year launch. It is a recognized industry phenomenon. An incredibly high-profile release will simply suck all the air out of the room. Competing developers know nobody will be talking about or playing their games while the rest of the world is focused on Rockstar. Some studios are openly admitting to this fear. Developers at Asobo recently called the franchise an ogre, noting that its presence makes 2026 a remarkably odd and difficult year to launch a video game. A highly polished, excellent game might easily fail to reach an audience if its launch window is completely swallowed by a larger competitor's marketing gravity. To survive, developers are executing a mass exodus. They are actively fleeing November, squashing their own release dates closely together into September and October. This animated calendar tracks the timeline from September to December 2026. You can clearly see the danger zone squarely centered on November 19th. Take the first-person game Valor Mortis. Originally slated for late September, the studio pushed it back to October 13th, just to escape the initial rush of titles piling up. As these delays compound, they create secondary bottlenecks. Dozens of studios are forced to launch side by side, effectively cannibalizing each other's release windows to avoid Rockstar. Rockstar's release schedule is now forcing competitors to compress their own launch windows, essentially trading lower financial projections for a better chance of surviving the fallout. But there is a single outlier to this systemic panic: the development studio S-Game and their upcoming action role-playing title, Phantom Blade Zero. Instead of retreating to a safer window, S-Game executed a counterintuitive calendar move. They took their previously announced September 9th launch and pushed it out to October 29th. That timeline places them squarely in the danger zone, launching a mere 3 weeks before the industry's biggest event of the decade. According to game director Chi-Wei Liang, the decision had almost nothing to do with marketing strategies. His philosophy is strictly that having extra months for bug fixing and optimization holds far more value than a clear release window. When you cannot possibly win the marketing war, a purely product-first strategy, focusing entirely on a highly polished, bug-free launch, might be the only viable defense mechanism against a massive studio. Fall 2026 presents a split reality. Consumers will likely see a significant technical milestone, while the studios themselves are navigating a dense and high-risk release gauntlet. The gravity of a single software launch has distorted the calendar, forcing studios worldwide to abandon their carefully planned strategies for an entire fiscal year. The entire gaming industry has reorganized itself around one day in November. The only question left is whether the final technical reality of those next-generation features will actually justify the terror it caused.